Hey nerds, it's been a long time since I've done an Asmongold reaction, so I thought it might be kind of fun. And I'm really excited because the last time I did one of these, I was playing Final Fantasy XIV because I was in a slump with World of Warcraft. And for anyone who doesn't know, my content creation career actually started around 2014 or 2015, and I was playing Legion for World of Warcraft. And during BFA, I got really upset because of the direction the game was going and the campaign and the story, and it didn't feel like the game that I had loved. And all of the changes that other MMOs were making just made them a lot more enticing than World of Warcraft. And I was really upset because I had always said that when I had kids and when I had, a family, I still wanted World of Warcraft to be a thing, and I was nervous that someday it wouldn't be. And I know Asmongold felt the same way, and so my last reaction to him was his talking about how upset he was during the BFA situation and going into Shadowlands, and then that's when everyone moved over to Final Fantasy XIV as well. But a lot of people are back because they're really excited about how Dragonflight, the new World of Warcraft expansion, is turning out. And so, I haven't gotten a ton of time to play Dragonflight yet. I'm really excited to. I'm hoping to do a Let's Play on YouTube, so hopefully you guys will be excited about that. But let's see what Asmongold's first impression was of Dragonflight, and if it's better than what his first impression was of BFA and Shadowlands.
What's up, boys? Today I want to talk to you about Dragonflight, my first impressions with the expansion, and just in general, sit outside for the first time in a long time, actually. It's been a while since I made a video outside, and so glad to be back again. And I'd like to sit down and talk with you all about my first impressions with the game. Now, before anybody goes and gets too wild, I want to say one thing. Usually, the problems with the expansions do not manifest themselves until a couple of weeks into the first season, a couple of months.
I love how he mentions into the first season, because normally it's not even lore at first for people. It's they get a week or so into the expansion and like Mythic Plus comes out and Normal and Heroic for the first raid come out and everybody is all excited and gung-ho, and then they find out that some kind of balance patch was released and their classes didn't do as good as they were hoping, and then they get all upset and they say, well, Windwalker Monk is trash. It's been trashed for a long time. Nobody's fixing it. Or during, what was it? Warlords of Draenor, I think it was, when Prot Warriors just could not take a hit, even using their own DR and having a dedicated healer for them for a raid. They just couldn't take a hit, and everybody was upset. And then all of a sudden, all of the people complaining started coming out, which makes sense because it's your main, right? And people would get upset that they were focusing on, whatever class that they really liked at the time. Especially, during Legion, everybody was like, oh, Demon Hunter, why are they doing this? They effed up demonology so that they could have Demon Hunter, really shine. So I love that he mentioned this. And the other thing, too, is that World of Warcraft players are a different breed, where no matter what, no matter how shitty the game has been, no matter how bad and the previous expansion was, everybody always gets hyped up for the next expansion. Everybody's just like, they have a new hope. They're running on hopium, and I don't understand why. All of us are this way. I'm this way. They literally just retconned a ton of lore and effectively threw out the Chronicles, and I'm still like, oh, dragons, yay! Drakes were the big things for World of Warcraft back in the day, so I just think it's funny, because we're always like that. There's always a spike for an expansion, and then it usually lasts for a month, maybe two, depending on how good the first raid is, and then it dies off. So I do think it's funny that he mentioned that.
Months into the expansion, then you start to see where the problems are. But we're at that good point right now in the game where the truth is that it doesn't really seem like it's that bad. It's actually kind of fun, if you can imagine that. I went through the leveling process. I'm level 70 now. I've gotten a few pieces of epic gear. I've done some of the dungeons. I've gone through some of the reputations. I did all the dragon riding stuff, and I want to talk to you about it today. But I do want to say that this is in no way, shape, or form a review or a comprehensive evaluation of the expansion.
What?
It's just simply my impressions of it playing the game. So the first thing is the actual launch of the expansion. I think that In general, the launch went very well for me. I've gotten relatively lucky.
Oh my god, it was so funny. So all I saw on Twitter, especially from like Sea-Doo, which I didn't even know that Sea-Doo joined Liquid or that he was even still competing in anything. But anyway, he was all like, "Man, this is like the worst launch ever," because some people like couldn't log in. There's always like some sort of DDoS thing whenever an expansion drops. Obviously, there's usually like server queues and bugs happen. Like bugs happen. People prepare for these things. And he was like, "Man, this is the worst one I've ever come into contact with." And other people were like, "It's the best launch ever. It was really smooth, especially for World of Warcraft, especially for Blizzard." And all I could think of when I saw the Sea-Doo comment was I was like, dude, Warlords of Draenor, people couldn't play for like a week. People took time off for Warlords, and it was getting hit so hard that like no one could log in. Like it wasn't even server queues. It pretended that it was a server queue of like 3 million that lasted for like days, and people couldn't get in, and if they did get in, they were like logged out. And then on top of that, it was really, really buggy. And what was funny was because of everything that's gone on with Blizzard recently, with all of the like litigation and everything like that, when people moved to 14, especially for the Endwalker launch, they were stunned. Like even with the queues, they're like, "Wow, I mean these queues suck, but like this is really seamless." And I don't know what the difference is there between 14 and World of Warcraft. I feel like because of it being less like MSQ and cutscene oriented, it might be tougher for like Blizz devs, but I don't really know. All I know is that it is funny that now a lot of 14 players are coming over to try WoW because of all of the reform that has been going on. And that's the first thing that they see is like all of that, you know, and people being like, "Oh, this is the worst launch ever." It's just, it's funny because it's not. It's not even close, so... I mean, I remember WoW having to be down for a full, like, 24 to 48 hours before before even a patch was released. Like, wow, damn, every Tuesday, WoW was down for, like, forever. So it's just, it's funny. Like, they really have grown, even though people say that they haven't. So I know the big joke is to call them an indie company, but it really is funny.
With launches, and the reason why I say lucky is that there are some servers that just completely got fucked. This happened in BFA, it happened in Shadowlands, it happened in Legion. It happens every fucking time where there's just one server or two servers or a handful of them that is just completely dysfunctional for the first day or two. And obviously that's bad, but in general, the launch was relatively smooth for me and what I would say probably the majority of people, outside of some disconnect issues that I think in many cases had to do with joining instances or being on your dragon. So the leveling process as soon as I got in was actually very good. I enjoyed the leveling process a lot more than I enjoyed it in Shadowlands and also in BFA. In Legion, I think I probably also enjoyed it more than in Legion. I think that in general, the story was, they were all told, like each of the different zones were told separately, but they were all part of a greater narrative.
See, that's actually nice because one of the things that people have always complained about, myself included, is like there would be incredible lore just within a certain area, within a certain leveling area. But it would really only pertain to that area unless it's somehow connected with like the Cataclysm. I think one of the biggest things for a quest or even a quest chain actually being part of the bigger picture was one of my favorite things to reference. When you're starting out leveling a dwarf, you learn a lot about the Trogs, and the Trogs have come up from underground, and the dwarves think that they're like going crazy and attacking, but they're not. They've felt the vibrations from like the Cataclysm, and so they were driven up out of their homes, and you get a lot of info, like little side info, especially if you actually, you know, interact with certain like objects and NPCs, and you find out that they were the first try at dwarves, even if you didn't know, you know, if you hadn't read the Chronicle, if you hadn't actually looked at the story like online, because they always used to have that on Battle.net. And so there's some Easter eggs like that where you can compare it and see what relevancy it has for the bigger picture. But a lot of times what people would complain about is that a lot of lore in World of Warcraft is outside in the Chronicle or in the books or in comics, even like considering, you know, Medivh and Garona's son, like he's only in the comics. I think his name was mentioned like once in maybe a novel even. I don't think it's been mentioned in the game. But it's nice that I haven't done these quests yet, but it's nice hearing that the zones have their own little stories and everything meshes together, but it also, you know, kind of comes together with the main big story, which is kind of cool. I'm kind of a lore nerd. I love everything about WoW, but story is just, the lore is right there for me, so I'm excited.
I think also one point where, I mean, this is not really a first impressions. This is, I think, a fucking fact that the in-game cinematics with like the character models and the rigging that they have for facial expressions, etc.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
You can see this explicitly with Caligos.
Mm-hmm.
Is way better. It is like fucking insane how much better it is than it was last.
And now everybody thinks Calicos and Nosdormu are like super hot. It's so funny. It's like just those little tweaks that they made for the cinematics. Now they're like, oh my god!
Last expansion, and even more so than the expansion before that. You know, it doesn't look as, I don't know, as fake, I guess you could say. And it just was really, really good. And I think actually the stories of the different zones was a lot better than what we got in Shadowlands. And I think it was also a lot better than what we got outside of probably BFA, besides maybe the Jaina storyline and the Drusvar arc, which I thought was pretty cool. Other than that, I think that it's been a massive step up in terms of narrative storytelling, in terms of showing the characters in the world actually like interacting with each other. The cinematics are better, the dialogue is better. I would say that just in pretty much all cases, it's a massive improvement. I think one of the best examples of why I think that it's very good is that, like, you know, whenever you're doing the first zone and there's like this dwarf that's like sitting off, like looking out into the distance, and you go through and you do a bunch of dialogue with him and then unlock a special quest to do for him. Well, the thing is that whenever there was a post about this, everybody responded to the post saying how great it was and how much they liked it, and in general they knew who this dwarf was and they thought that it was a sympathetic story in a way that they were able to relate to and respond to. And I think that's really impressive, because whenever I think back to a lot of the main characters in Shadowlands, I honestly don't give a fuck about any of them. I think they're stupid, they were pointless, and
I always had a thing with Sylvanas. It was like, regardless of what her story was for Warcraft 3, it was just like everyone was just super like head over heels for Sylvanas, like OMG Sylvanas, and I couldn't stand her character for that reason. And then I really couldn't stand it in Shadowlands, and I just wanted her to go away. So yeah,
was generally awful, besides Denathrius, who was a fucking Giga Chad. Everybody else sucked. So anyway, besides that, I would also say that just dragon riding throughout the entire expansion reminded me a lot of Cataclysm. I know this is going to be one of my more hot takes. I actually really enjoyed Cataclysm. I think that's for a lot of reasons outside of video gaming, though. You know, like where I was in my life, what I was doing, etc. You know, how old I was. I think that's probably a bigger reason why I enjoyed Cataclysm more so than the content, but nonetheless, I did enjoy Cataclysm, and it reminded me a lot of that, being able to fly around after, after just being part of the zone just right then, actually, with Cataclysm, and I really enjoyed that, and I really liked being able to learn dragon riding, and also, like, collect the little dragon symbols and the tokens that, like, make your dragon fly faster.
Like Guild Wars 2. Actually, it's funny because of having the, like, talent trees, effectively, for that too, is kind of like masteries for a sky scale in Guild Wars 2, which is funny because everybody was like, oh my god, they stole it. And it's like, I mean, it's an MMO. Like, what are you gonna do? That's what everybody does, you know? And, but it's just funny because it's one of those things where, for masteries for Guild Wars 2, everybody wants it to be related to what you're doing. So, like, flying a certain way, getting to a certain height, grabbing something, you know, doing some sort of weird, like, aerial, aerodynamic type things. And it's not. It's literally like, oh, you kill a bunch of mobs in this one area, or you do a bunch of quests, or, you know, a bunch of whatever. And it has literally nothing to do, really, with the mastery that you're working toward. And so I think it's kind of funny that WoW took effectively what mounts are, well, at least, like, with the way that the dragon riding works, took that from the sky scale. It's still not weighted like mounts are in Guild Wars 2, but they took that and they took the mastery system and they made it better with the way that the talents work and what you have to do in order to, you know, make those talents work and collect certain things. So I think that's a win regardless of who they stole it from.
And do all those things, and then learning the nuances of it, and doing the advanced trials now. I think that it's very enjoyable, and it's just straight up fun. And I think that Blizzard focusing more on fun and just adding content into the game that is enjoyable, that people want to do and interface with, I think this is just such a much more sustainable model for development versus trying to create people that are, you know, like they're logging in every day to do their Torghast or to do some sort of calling quest or some fucking bullshit because of some system that if you get behind on, you lose your raid spot with, or you can't get into pugs anymore because you don't have it. I think that the shift away from that, and even Ian, I think, talked about this in the Preach video that
I still have to watch that Priest video.
Recommend watching.
Apparently that was really good.
An hour long, and it's worth every minute. But he actually even referred to it as the AP era. You know, you have artifact power, Azerite power, and anima power. And that's basically something that they are saying, this is behind us, we're not going to do this anymore. And
it's like, for me, especially with artifact power, I've talked about this before, but one of the ways that I thought it would have been really cool to end WoW if they wanted to, so that the lore didn't get like super convoluted and complicated and for WoW to not overstay its welcome and do like a WoW 2, was taking the artifact weapons and having them all like be dumped into the Well of Eternity to effectively blow up the Azeroth, to blow up the Azeroth World Soul. Because I had always assumed that it had been corrupted by the Void, even though we've been trying to protect it from doing so all these years. But we really don't know, because there was Void around it when it was found by the members of the Pantheon. And so I always thought that that would be really cool. Obviously, it wasn't necessary, but I hated artifact weapons. I hated AP, so.
Thank God for that. What a massive relief. And I think that the focus on just a more relaxed tone, I like the storylines in the game. I think they're more interesting. I think they're more personal. I think that that's one of the things that really has been missing with WoW, is having characters that you feel a personal connection to. And I think that with Shadowlands, not with Shadowlands, with Dragonflight, I think that's much more evident.
Dragonlance. It's actually funny that he mentions that, because the new D&D books for are coming out for Dragonlance based off the... Yeah, okay, bye.
It's much more clear, and I think that having the better rigging for those characters helps humanize them that much more, even whenever they are dragons. So yeah, quests were great, leveling experience was great. It was also very fast. I would say leveling was faster than it was in previous expansions, and I definitely appreciate that. I don't really want to go through and spend a whole lot of time leveling my character for the 18th time or something like this. And I also like how leveling ends, and then you can continue doing the storyline, but you don't have to right away. You don't have to do that. You can go do something else after you actually hit max level.
I think like the one thing that I saw that was a criticism about that was someone said that even like the regular quests felt like side quests, but I think it was on Reddit, and I think the person didn't actually play, was just like watching other people's streams, and said that even the main quest seemed like side quests, and it was just like side quest fluff. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm hoping that there will be a lot of old gods. I'm hoping that there's shades of gray with Nostormu. I'm hoping that there's shades of gray with Wrathion, especially because like when you see Wrathion, when you meet him in Mists and he helps you with your legendary back, like he is shisty. He is a shyster. He's like slimy as fuck. So it would be really cool. And it would be really cool. One of my theories was, especially with the primal that we're dealing with, was, and having it and connect to the Titans and the Titan Keepers in a different area, because the Titan Keepers effectively for Miss Pandaria with a Mogu, and uh, I think it was Lei Shen who got his power. He like held Raden, like kidnapped him and like effectively took his power, and it was like storms and all of that, and I think that would be really cool, especially because if it had a connection to the Dragon Isles, and if we dealt with some old god stuff or some more Titan Keeper stuff in a better way than Shadowlands, especially because like it sucked being done with Sargeras at the end of Legion, you know what I mean? And the other connection that I was talking about that I think would be really cool if they did something in the raid, and I didn't do any of the beta testing, so I really don't know, would be because you had Lei Shen in Throne of Thunder, and one of the bosses, I believe, was in Throne of Thunder was Elgalon or Celestalon. I always get the dragons messed up, but regardless, one of them was in Alduar, and the other was in, I believe, Throne of Thunder. And, you had the Mogu instead of the other Titan Keepers, so it would be cool if in the Dragon Isles you have these Titan Keepers, you have, like, this Storm Primal Dragon aspect issue, and then you have something that relates to the old gods and the world soul and everything there, especially in the raids. So I hope so. I'm hoping that we might even get another, because everything is with Dragonflight, that we might get another really cool like celestial type dragon boss that drops a really cool weapon. So
at 70, and I also find that very much appreciated, because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go out and do the mythic dungeons and fuck around, exploit some mobs. It was a good time. I got 379 weapons out of that. Hopefully Blizzard doesn't take those away from me. So yeah, I had a really good time doing that, and I think in general the philosophy around providing tools for the player to have fun with, but not telling them how to have fun, has been a massive improvement, and I've really enjoyed it a lot. And overall, I think the leveling experience has been the best it has been in a long, long, long time. And it's very overdue. So yeah, leveling experience, absolutely S tier, amazing. Cinematics, huge improvement, the best they've pretty much ever done in terms of, you might not enjoy the actual cinematic, the subject matter of the cinematic, but I think that if you look at the way that the characters are moving and the designs and everything like that, I think that this is also the best it's ever been, and that's great to see. Dungeons, I think that in general, I've enjoyed the dungeons. They're fine. I am a little bit exhausted from, you always, like, this is like a thing now with WoW, and like every time that you do a mythic dungeon, like every trash mob has like 3 separate abilities, and it can be a bit exhausting to do with that, like throughout the entire dungeon. I don't know how that's going to feel on Mythic Plus. I think that a lot of the dungeons that people are steamrolling and thinking are very easy in Mythic Zero, I think they're going to be for a very rude awakening in Mythic Plus, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe that's just my own opinion. But overall, I've really had fun playing the expansion. Dragon riding has been a lot of fun, and I hope they continue to make more content out of it. And I think there's one really good way to make more content out of it.
I also heard that the races are exactly like, racing in Guild Wars 2, which is kind of fun. I have to see. I have to experience it for myself. I hope it's fun. I'm hoping to get into that content more today, so.
It is to just add dragon riding to the entire game, and then just let people choose whether they want to use dragon riding or normal flying mounts. There is a lot of value in using a normal flying mount, because you can just simply tab out, jerk off, come back into the game, and you're already where you need to be. Or you're 10 feet out or 10 miles out into the great ocean, and you're dead and you have to take res sick. One or the other, it's either way something that is very convenient. So what I'm really trying to say is that I hope they add dragon riding, and they add a little bit more of those different little time trials and the flying missions around the open world and the old world as well, in Azeroth and maybe Outland, Northrend, etc. I think the entire player base seems to really enjoy, well, almost the entire player base. There's never everybody that likes something, but many people really seem to enjoy dragon riding, and I'll be honest, I'm one of them. I think it's great. There's been a lot of people I see out there. Oh my god, I thought that was a wasp. Oh my god. All right, so anyway, it was not. It was
I've done like the stuff for the Drakthir for the Evoker. I've used like Soar and done the flight that way, but obviously not Dragon Raiding yet. I just started the expansion, so if you guys want my impressions, let me know.
Moth. So yeah, I think a lot of people like dragon riding, and it's been enjoyable. The classes are fun to play, and it really is just going to depend on kind of how things evolve and how Blizzard changes the game and makes it different after the first line of feedback is received, after the first expansion or season comes out, and we really start to see the nuts and bolts of the game, and we get to actually play it to its full potential. I think that's really where the expansions become truly tested, is how do these functions work whenever they're actually put in a competitive environment? How do they work whenever people are using them regularly and the honeymoon period is worn off?
But I do like that it's not a ton of systems upon a ton of systems. Like, the dragon riding talents make sense. The talent trees that we have now make sense. You know, the UI that's completely different from when I last played makes sense. I did tweak it to look a little bit like how it used to, but still, you know, it makes sense. And that's what's good. It's not just like counterintuitive systems that don't make sense and are just like time gates.
That's what's really going to define whether Dragonflight is a good expansion or not. But I think the actions that Blizzard has already taken with Dragonflight and the way that they've taken those actions indicates that they really do want to make the game better for the players. And I do not really say that lightly. I think that in many cases that hasn't been the case. And for some people who are doomers, I will absolutely throw you guys a bone. It is absolutely indefensible to not have the creation catalyst available on week 1 for season 1. And I think it's fucking ridiculous. They should just let people get their tier gear, and then that's that, and it's not a big deal. If you're worried about people quitting the game after they get their tier gear, that's a problem with the game, not the tier gear. So, in general, I do think that there are some things that...
It wouldn't be Blizz if there wasn't time gating. Like...
Dragonflight can absolutely improve on. Things like making Soar for Drakthir not as good. I don't really see the value in this. It was very stupid for them to do that, in my opinion. But overall, I think that a lot of the changes that have been made to the game have been made on such a foundational level that I've always said that an expansion, in order to make WoW a good game again, it will not take an expansion, it will take 2 or 3. It seems as though Dragonflight could be the first one. We have a long way to go. I'm glad Blizzard has started listening, and I hope they continue to listen, and I hope people can enjoy the game and give good feedback as well on how to make it even better. So yeah, I've enjoyed Dragonflight a lot. I've had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun at the beginning of Shadowlands too, and also at the very beginning of...
Right, which is exactly what I said, that hopium.
BFA, less so with Legion. But in general, there's always going to be that
I actually had a lot of fun at the
phase
beginning of
for the
Legion
game
because
where
of the
you
way they
enjoy it
scaled
and
the
you have
leveling
fun.
to be able to
Yeah, it's
level
nice
with other
to be
people.
in one of those right now. I hope it lasts for as long as possible, and I hope that whenever it wears off, we'll at least have a decent game whenever we can actually look back and see what's really going on. And if we don't, I hope Blizzard listens and can improve it as soon as possible rather than waiting to withhold changes for content later on. So yeah, that's in general the way I feel about Dragonflight. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about it. But to be completely honest, the sun is going down and it's going to be dark in about 5 or 10 minutes, so I'm going to end the video here. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I will be playing through pretty much everything on Dragonflight on Twitch. Obviously, you guys see on the YouTube videos, etc. So I will be doing more of that, so I'll see you guys there. I had to end stream early today, so I figured I would do one of these instead. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Peace.
What a nerd. But yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think as well. And if you like these videos, if you want to have me keep, making these reaction videos, I'm just getting back into the content creation, and the analytic mountains are hard, but I'm looking to climb them. I'm getting back into streaming and everything. I'll be having some cool Patreon stuff. I'll be connecting all of my socials and content creation with my store. So I'm really excited. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and send a little thank you. You can do like a thank you donation as well. So I appreciate it, and I will see you guys at the next one.